After losing her husband, a grieving widow faced an uncertain future, but nothing could prepare her for what her son did next. His actions would change their lives forever, in a way no one saw coming. This is a powerful story of resilience, compassion, and a shocking twist that will leave you speechless. Stay with us until the very end. You won't want to miss a single moment. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an incredible story like this. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments. Now, let's dive in. The evening air was thick with humidity, clinging to the modest three-story house like a silent reminder of the family's struggles. The dim glow of a single light bulb flickered weakly in the living room, casting long shadows across the cracked walls. In one corner sat a frail woman, her fingers intertwined in her lap, eyes distant as if lost in the past. Her name was Aisha, and 5 years ago she had been a happy wife, content in her simple life with her husband Omar and their 2 children, Adam and Nadia. But that life had shattered in an instant. Omar had been the pillar of their family, a hard-working man employed at a private company, earning enough to provide a decent life for them. He wasn't rich, but he made sure they never went hungry. He was the kind of father who would lift his children onto his shoulders after a long day of work, spinning them around until their laughter filled the air. He was the kind of husband who would leave a single flower on Aisha's nightstand every now and then just to see her smile. But life, as cruel as it could be, had other plans. One morning, Omar left for work as usual, dressed in his neatly pressed shirt and slacks, kissing Aisha on the forehead before stepping out the door. He promised he would return early that evening to take Adam to the park. He never came home. A sudden heart attack at the age of 35 stole him away from them, leaving Aisha a widow at just 27. The news arrived with a cold finality that she couldn't comprehend at first. Her hands had trembled as she clutched the phone, her heart pounding in her chest, refusing to accept the words spoken on the other end. When she reached the hospital, the sight of his lifeless body drained every ounce of strength from her legs. She collapsed beside him, sobbing into the stiff fabric of his work uniform. In the days that followed, the house once filled with warmth and laughter turned into a hollow space of grief. The scent of Omar's cologne still lingered on his pillow. His shoes remained neatly placed by the door, as if he would walk in at any moment. But reality was merciless. The financial burden came crashing down like a tidal wave. Omar's company provided a mere $2,000 in compensation, a sum that barely lasted 10 months. Aisha, who had never worked a day outside her home, found herself drowning in responsibilities she had never prepared for. Rent, electricity, water, food, every necessity now felt like an impossible luxury. And then there was Adam, 12 years old, and Nadia, 16, who still needed to eat, to study, to survive. At first, she held on to hope. She believed that family and friends, the same people who had once filled their home during holidays and celebrations, would come forward to help. But hope was a fragile thing. People who had once called Omar a brother, a friend, now offered nothing more than empty condolences and whispered excuses. Some avoided them altogether. The phone calls stopped, the visits ceased, the world moved on. But Aisha remained trapped in her grief and desperation. Adam noticed the changes before his mother ever spoke of them. He was just a child, but even he could see the weight pressing down on her shoulders. He heard the muffled cries at night when she thought he and Nadia were asleep. He saw the worry etched into her face as she stared at the dwindling food supply in the kitchen. Then came the hardest days, when Aisha began selling whatever she could to keep them afloat. The gold bangles Omar had given her on their wedding day, the antique clock that had belonged to her father, the wooden dining table where they had once shared family meals. All gone. Each sale was another piece of their life slipping away. But sacrifices were not enough. The money ran out faster than she anticipated. The landlord, once sympathetic, began knocking on their door, his patience wearing thin. Utility bills stacked up, and soon even the most basic needs, rice, flour, sugar, became out of reach. Adam, once an energetic boy with a mischievous grin, grew quieter. His clothes hung loosely on his thinning frame, his once bright brown eyes dulled by hunger. He still went to school, but his stomach ached, his mind foggy from lack of food. His grades, once excellent, began to slip. 2 days passed where he hadn't eaten anything, only water filled his stomach. A weak attempt to silence the gnawing emptiness inside him. One morning, Aisha found him sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his open textbook. The pages blurred before his tired eyes, his fingers gripping the edges as if he could absorb the words through sheer willpower. "Adam," she whispered, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. He flinched slightly, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, Mama," he lied. She knew better. She could see the exhaustion in his face, the way his fingers trembled ever so slightly. But what could she do? There was no food left to give him, no money left to buy even a piece of bread. The pain of helplessness clawed at her chest, an unbearable weight pressing down on her soul. That morning, as Adam walked to school, his legs felt heavier than usual. His vision swam, the world tilting slightly as he trudged forward. His uniform, once neatly ironed by his mother, now had tiny tears at the edges, the fabric worn from overuse. He didn't complain. He didn't cry. He simply kept moving forward, hoping that the hunger would eventually fade into something manageable. But hunger was relentless. By midday, his body gave up. As he sat in class, the teacher's voice became a distant hum, drowned by the ringing in his ears. His fingers loosened their grip on his pencil, his head growing heavier with each passing second. Then, darkness overtook him. Adam slumped forward in his seat, the world vanishing in an instant. The classroom fell silent. His teacher, Mr. Bilal, stopped mid-sentence, his sharp eyes locking on to the pale, unmoving boy. A wave of concern rushed through him as he strode across the room, that gently shaking Adam's shoulder. "Adam," he called, but there was no response. Panic surged through Mr. Bilal's chest as he bent down, noticing the slight rise and fall of the boy's chest. He was breathing, but barely. "Somebody get the principal," he instructed, his voice firm but controlled. Now, as the class erupted into whispers, Mr. Bilal carefully lifted Adam's limp body into his arms, his heart pounding against his ribs. The boy's skin was cold to the touch, his lips dry and cracked. It didn't take long for him to realize what was wrong. Adam was starving. Mr. Bilal clenched his jaw, a mix of anger and sorrow twisting in his gut. How had things gotten this bad? He had always seen Adam as a bright, promising student, but he had never imagined that the boy was suffering in silence. As he carried him towards the staff room, one thing became clear. He would not let this boy go hungry again. The world blurred into a hazy mix of colors and muffled sounds as Adam drifted in and out of consciousness. His fingers twitched slightly on the wooden desk, his head growing heavier with every passing second. His stomach clenched painfully, a dull ache radiating from deep within. He had survived on nothing but water for 2 days, and his body had finally reached its breaking point. Mr. Bilal's sharp eyes caught the moment Adam slumped forward, his pencil rolling off the desk and landing on the floor with a faint clatter. The boy's usually bright face was pale, his lips dry and cracked. Something was terribly wrong. "Adam," Mr. Bilal called out, his voice firm yet filled with concern. No response. The rest of the class had gone silent, their curious gazes fixed on their struggling classmate. With urgency, Mr. Bilal strode toward Adam's desk, kneeling beside him. A light shake to his shoulder yielded nothing but a weak groan. Panic tightened in the teacher's chest. Adam's small frame felt worryingly frail beneath his grasp. "Somebody get the principal," he ordered, his voice steady despite the storm of worry brewing inside him. Before anyone could react, Mr. Bilal carefully lifted Adam into his arms. The boy's body was limp, his breathing shallow. The teacher's heart clenched. He had taught Adam for years, watched him grow, and seen his sharp mind at work. But now the boy looked fragile, defeated by hunger. As he carried Adam through the hallway toward the staff room, other teachers and students cast concerned glances in their direction. "Is he okay?" one of them asked. Mr. Bilal gave no response. His focus was on getting the boy the help he needed. Inside the staff room, he gently laid Adam onto a couch. One of the office assistants rushed to get a damp cloth, dabbing the boy's forehead. Mr. Bilal unbuttoned the top of Adam's shirt slightly to give him air. The sight before him filled him with sorrow. He had been a teacher for years, and though he had witnessed students struggle before, this was different. This was pure, unfiltered desperation. A few minutes later, Adam stirred weakly, his eyes fluttering open. The room spun, and he blinked several times before his gaze landed on Mr. Bilal's concerned face. "Adam," the teacher said gently, "what happened to you?" The boy swallowed, his throat dry. He hesitated, his pride warring with his need to tell the truth. But something in Mr. Bilal's kind eyes broke his silence. We have no food at home, sir," he admitted. "His mama hasn't eaten either. I didn't want to tell anyone." The words struck Mr. Bilal like a punch to the gut. His jaw clenched, and he took a deep breath to steady himself. No child should have to endure this. Without wasting another second, he turned to the school's security guard, who had been watching the exchange. "Go to the market," he said, pulling a few bills from his wallet. "Get something filling, a meal, juice, anything quick." "Now," the guard nodded and rushed out. Meanwhile, Mr. Bilal turned back to Adam, who looked embarrassed and exhausted. "You don't have to hide this, Adam," he said softly. "You are not alone." Minutes later, the guard returned, handing Mr. Bilal a warm sandwich and a bottle of orange juice. The teacher unwrapped the sandwich, handing it to Adam. "Eat," he urged. Adam hesitated at first, his pride still clinging to him, but as soon as he took a bite, his body overrode his reluctance. The flavors, the warmth. It was overwhelming. He ate quickly, taking deep gulps of the juice between bites. As he did, strength slowly returned to his limbs, his mind clearing from the haze of starvation. Mr. Bilal watched in silence, relief washing over him as color returned to the boy's face. When Adam finally leaned back with a deep breath, the teacher smiled. "Feeling better?" Adam nodded, a shy but grateful look in his eyes. "Yes, sir. Thank you." But Mr. Bilal wasn't done. He placed a hand on Adam's shoulder. "After school, come to my office. We're going to fix this." Adam didn't know what that meant, but for the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Someone cared. Someone was willing to help. Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a life-changing journey. The afternoon sun cast long, golden beams across the schoolyard as Adam slowly made his way toward Mr. Balal's office. His body still felt weak, but his spirit was lighter than it had been in months. The sandwich and juice had given him more than just physical strength. It had given him hope. For the first time, in what felt like forever, he wasn't facing his struggles alone. When Adam arrived, Mr. Balal was seated at his desk, reviewing papers, his brow furrowed in deep thought. But as soon as he noticed Adam standing hesitantly at the door, he put his pen down and smiled warmly. "Come in, Adam. Have a seat." Adam stepped inside, his fingers fidgeting slightly in his lap as he sat. He had no idea what to expect. Would Mr. Balal ask questions he wasn't ready to answer? Would he offer more food, knowing that Adam couldn't possibly repay him? The boy's mind swirled with uncertainty. Mr. Balal leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. "I won't waste time, Adam. I know you're going through a tough time, and I want to help, but I need you to be honest with me." Adam swallowed hard, his eyes darting to the floor. "It's just, things have been difficult since my dad passed away. My mom works all day, and sometimes there's just not enough food. I didn't want to bother anyone." Mr. Balal sighed, his expression filled with something that looked almost like regret. "Adam, you're never a bother, and no child should have to worry about where their next meal is coming from. But more importantly, I don't want your struggles to take away your future. You're one of the brightest students in this school. We need to make sure you stay on track." Adam blinked, momentarily surprised. He had always enjoyed school, but with everything going on, he hadn't felt like he was anything special. "But how can I focus on school when my mum can barely keep the lights on?" Mr. Balal nodded knowingly. "That's exactly why I want to help. From now on, I will personally make sure you and your family have enough to eat. But in return, I need you to promise me something." Adam sat up straighter. "What is it, sir?" "Promise me you'll put everything you have into your studies. Don't let hunger, worry, or doubt take away what you can become. Education is your way out of this, Adam. If you stay focused, you can build a future where you'll never have to go through this again." The words struck something deep within Adam. He thought about his mother, exhausted and still working late into the night. He thought about his sister, Nadia, who tried to hide her own hunger so he wouldn't feel guilty. He thought about his father, who had always told him to dream big. Maybe, just maybe, Mr. Balal was right. Adam took a deep breath and nodded. "I promise, sir, I won't waste this chance." Mr. Balal smiled, leaning back in his chair. "That's what I wanted to hear. Now let's get to work." From that day on, things began to change. Mr. Balal didn't just provide food for Adam's family. He became a true mentor. He spent extra time after school helping Adam with subjects he struggled with. He spoke to the school administration to ensure Adam had access to books and materials. Slowly, but surely, the boy who had nearly collapsed from hunger began to regain his strength, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. The transformation didn't go unnoticed. Other teachers saw the improvement in Adam's grades. His classmates, who once only knew him as the quiet, tired boy in the back of the room, now saw him participating, answering questions, even smiling more. His mother, Aisha, was hesitant at first when Adam told her about Mr. Balal's generosity, but when she saw her son's renewed determination, she understood. This was the lifeline they desperately needed. Months passed, and Adam thrived. He didn't just do well in school, he excelled. The hunger that had once clouded his mind was replaced by ambition. He studied late into the night, sometimes with nothing but a candle lighting his books, and each morning, when he walked through the school gates, he carried himself a little taller, a little stronger. But Adam wasn't just thinking about himself. Mr. Bilal had shown him what true kindness looked like, and in return, Adam began helping others. He tutored younger students who were struggling. He shared what little he had with classmates who needed it. The cycle of generosity had begun. One evening, as he sat beside his mother at their worn-out wooden table, he placed his hand over hers. "Mama," he said softly, "one day I'll take care of everything. You won't have to work so hard anymore." Aisha looked at her son, her little boy, who had grown into a determined young man, before her very eyes. Tears welled up, but they weren't just from sorrow this time. They were from pride. "I know you will, Adam," she whispered, "and I believe in you." As the years went by, Adam never forgot the promise he made to Mr. Bilal. He studied relentlessly, acing exams, earning scholarships, and eventually securing a chance to study abroad. It was the opportunity of a lifetime, one that had once seemed impossible. The night before he left, Adam visited Mr. Bilal's home. The teacher, now older but still the same guiding force in his life, opened the door with a warm smile. "Adam, my boy, what brings you here so late?" Adam held up a small wrapped gift. "I just wanted to say thank you, sir, for everything. I wouldn't be here without you." Mr. Bilal chuckled, motioning for him to come inside. "No thanks needed, Adam, just promise me one thing." Adam grinned, already knowing what he was about to say, "that I'll keep studying and never waste my opportunities." Mr. Bilal nodded, pride shining in his eyes. "Exactly. Now go and make the world proud." As Adam walked away that night, he felt something deep in his heart, a sense of purpose, of gratitude, of hope. He knew that his journey wasn't just his own anymore. It was built on the kindness of others, and one day he would return that kindness tenfold. And so he stepped into his future, carrying with him the lessons of the past and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Years had passed, and Adam was no longer the frail boy who had once collapsed in class from hunger. He had grown into a confident young man, his mind sharpened by years of studying abroad. With a degree in hand and a promising future ahead of him, he had finally returned home. But amidst the excitement of reuniting with his family, there was one person he knew he had to see first: Mr. Bilal. As Adam walked through the familiar streets of his childhood, he felt a rush memories flood back. The narrow alleys, the small vendor stalls, the scent of fresh bread wafting from the local bakery. It was all the same. But something within him had changed. He was no longer a helpless boy struggling to survive. He was now a man, ready to give back. Arriving at the school, Adam's heart pounded in his chest. He had imagined this moment countless times, but nothing could have prepared him for what he saw. Mr. Bilal's office, once a place of warmth and guidance, now looked eerily empty. The old wooden desk remained, stacked with papers, but there was no sign of the man who had changed his life. Concern gnawed at Adam as he stepped inside and found another teacher sitting there. "Excuse me," he said, his voice firm but polite. "Where is Mr. Bilal?" The teacher sighed, looking up from his papers. "Mr. Bilal retired last year. He's been unwell, and his family has been struggling. He's at home now." A sharp pang of guilt hit Adam. He had been so focused on his studies and building a future that he hadn't realized how much time had passed. Without another word, he turned on his heel and headed straight for Mr. Bilal's home. When Adam arrived, the sight before him was heartbreaking. The small house, once well kept, now showed signs of wear. The paint was peeling, and the garden was overgrown with weeds. Taking a deep breath, he knocked on the door. Moments later, the door creaked open, and there stood Mr. Strestad Balal. But he was not the strong, composed man Adam remembered. His once sturdy frame had become frail, his hair now complete. His eyes, however, still held the same kindness. Adam? Mr. Balal's voice was weak, but there was unmistakable surprise and warmth in it. Adam swallowed the lump in his throat and forced a smile. "It's me, sir. I came back, and this time I'm here to help you." Mr. Balal's eyes softened, but he shook his head. "My boy, you owe me nothing." Adam stepped inside and gently took the old man's hands in his. "Sir, you once told me that no child should have to worry about where their next meal is coming from. You made sure my family survived. Now it's my turn." Over the next few weeks, Adam ensured that Mr. Balal received proper medical treatment. He hired caretakers, repaired the house, and made sure his former mentor never had to struggle again. One evening, as they sat together in the newly restored garden, Mr. Balal looked at Adam with tears in his eyes. "I always knew you would do great things, Adam. But this means more to me than you will ever know." Adam smiled, feeling the weight of gratitude in his heart. "You believed in me when no one else did, sir. This is the least I can do." And so, the student repaid his teacher, not just with financial support, but with the same kindness and compassion that had once saved his life. The cycle of generosity had come full circle, proving that one act of kindness could truly change the world. The days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. With Adam's unwavering support, Mr. Balal's health improved significantly. The once weary teacher regained his strength, and his home, which had once been on the brink of neglect, now flourished under Adam's care. The garden was alive again, with flowers blooming and birds returning to their usual perches. It was a sight that filled Mr. Balal with gratitude every morning as he sipped his tea on the porch. But Adam wasn't finished yet. He knew that Mr. Balal had given so much not just to him, but to countless other students over the years. His kindness deserved more than just a comfortable home and medical care. It deserved recognition. One afternoon, Adam reached out to an old friend from his university who was now working in media. Together, they arranged for a feature story about Mr. Balal's contributions as a teacher. A few weeks later, a journalist arrived at Mr. Balal's home to interview him, capturing the incredible story of a man who had shaped so many young minds. The article was published in major newspapers, and within days, people from all over the country were reaching out, eager to express their gratitude to the humble teacher. Former students, many of whom had gone on to become doctors, engineers, and business leaders, visited Mr. Balal, thanking him personally for the impact he had made on their lives. Some even offered financial support, but Mr. Balal, ever the selfless man, redirected their generosity to helping underprivileged children in the community. Inspired by his spirit, Adam decided to take things a step further. With Mr. Balal's blessing, Adam established the Balal Foundation for Education, a non-profit dedicated to providing scholarships, school supplies, and mentorship programs for children in need. He poured his heart into the project, ensuring that no child would ever have to endure the struggles he once faced. The foundation quickly gained support, with former students, teachers, and even strangers donating to the cause. But amid all the success, there was one final chapter yet to unfold, one that would truly bring Mr. Balal into Adam's family. One evening, as Adam sat with his mother, Isha, she brought up an idea that had been lingering in her mind. "Adam, You've done so much for Mr. Bilal, but there's something else we can do. His daughter Sarah, she's a kind and intelligent woman. I've seen the way you two talk. Have you ever considered? Adam felt his face grow warm. He had known Sarah since childhood, but in the midst of everything, he hadn't allowed himself to think about anything beyond work and responsibilities. But now, with his mother's words echoing in his mind, he realized that there was truth to what she was saying. A few days later, Adam visited Mr. Bilal's home, not just as a student repaying a debt, but as a man with a heartfelt proposal. He sat with Mr. Bilal, expressing his gratitude once more before hesitating for a moment. "Sir," Adam finally said, "I want to ask for your blessing to marry Sarah. I promise to cherish and honor her, just as you have guided and protected me." Mr. Bilal looked at Adam for a long moment, his eyes brimming with emotion. Then, with a slow smile, he placed a hand on Adam's shoulder. "You were always meant to be family, my son. Nothing would bring me greater joy." The wedding was a beautiful, intimate affair, filled with laughter, love, and the presence of those whose lives had been touched by Mr. Taysir Bilal and Adam. It was not just the union of two souls, but a symbol of how kindness, when given freely, finds its way back in the most unexpected and beautiful forms. As Adam stood beside his wife, watching Mr. Bilal laugh with Aisha and Nadia, he felt a profound sense of peace. The boy who had once struggled to find his next meal had become a man capable of giving back, of lifting others up just as he had been lifted. And so the cycle continued. Adam and Sarah dedicated their lives to education, carrying forward Mr. Bilal's legacy. The Bilal Foundation grew, expanding to multiple schools and communities. Every year, on the anniversary of the day Mr. Bilal had first helped him, Adam would visit his former school, speaking to young students and reminding them that kindness could change the course of a life. Because in the end, it wasn't just about repaying a debt, it was about ensuring that the kindness he had received would never end. And with that, Mr. Bilal's legacy lived on, not just in Adam's heart, but in the lives of every child who was given the chance to dream because of him. Thanks for watching. If you love this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more great stories like this one.